Hello everyone, I'm Denise Boggs, and I want to welcome you as we journey together through healing the heart. I want to bring some deeper understanding to you about forgiveness that you may not have considered, and this is what Jesus taught us in Matthew 5, okay? This is what he said. He said, let me read it to you here. It says, let your yes be simply yes, and your no be simply no. Anything more than that comes from the evil one. That's Matthew 5:37. Okay, so as you're working through forgiveness, then the things you once said yes to, but you'd feel angry inside because you had to go to the mall. You didn't want to go to the mall, but you said yes, I'll go to the mall. Okay? Now you can say, no, I don't think I'm going to go to the mall today. And see, with forgiveness, it empowers you to say no, because you say no without anger. Speak the truth in love, that you can grow up in every way, is what Paul said also in Ephesians. So it empowers you. Forgiveness empowers you to be able to say yes and no when it's appropriate. Because unforgiveness keeps you bound up in the pain of the past, of how a person dealt things the wrong way before. So you haven't forgiven them. So now if they ask you something, you'll say yes to it just because you don't want them to get upset. Okay? So then you're all upset. Do you see how this blocks communication in friendships and marriage? Nobody's speaking the truth. Okay, but once you've forgiven the past hurts, then you can be truthful in the present. You can say yes, and you can say no when it's appropriate. Okay? Now, let's think about it. If you don't, let's just give some examples, okay? I want to give you some examples in my own life. And so, before forgiveness, before I forgave my dad, let's say, I would say yes to things with my husband because I was fearful of his reaction. I would say yes to, oh my goodness, this just came to my mind, a house that we bought. I didn't like the house. I did not like that house at all. And I said, yes, okay. I didn't like the house. And so every day I am just really struggling with this house. I didn't like it, but I didn't say no to him when he asked me, did I like the house? I said, yes. So I'm lying. I'm saying yes when I mean no, because let your yes be yes and your no be no. Anything more than that comes from the evil one. So the whole time we lived in that house, okay, I didn't have peace and he didn't have peace because we weren't living in truth. Do you know that unforgiveness keeps you from living in truth? Unforgiveness keeps you bound up, that you're trying to please someone and not trigger them. Okay, so what forgiveness did, when I forgave all the things that I was struggling with my dad, then I'm not fearful of my husband. Because, see, when you have unforgiveness, you'll see people through the lens. It's kind of like mom and dad. You'll see people and situations through the lens. And so I was projecting all of my hurt from my dad onto my husband. And so I was even just responding to things, agreeing to things like this house. I didn't like the house because my dad would get easily triggered and angry and harsh. So I didn't want my husband to be that way. And so the longer I held on to the pain, the hurt towards my dad, I couldn't be real and authentic with my husband. So you have to learn how to set boundaries through forgiveness. So once I forgave my dad, I could set boundaries with my husband and say, no, I don't like that house. And I'm not fearful he's going to overreact. He just said, oh, okay. Well, let's find another one. Okay. So your no can mean no, and others will respect your no when you set a boundary out of love and not out of anger. Because until you forgive, you're saying things to just accommodate people and their issues. So once you've forgiven someone, though, that's hurt you, that's a little different. What I just explained was I forgave my dad, so I shifted in my relationship with my husband. But once I forgave, let's say, a friend that hurt me, okay, then I set boundaries by saying, no, I don't think I can go with you on that trip, because I would know that it was during trips when this particular person would just, act out and fly off the handle and really say mean things. And so I could now say, no, I'm sorry, I can't go on that trip with you anymore. So I set a boundary. A boundary is a line, a limit, but it's a fence with a gate in it. It goes like this. You can still invite the person into your life, but when it's an appropriate time, you can say, no, I don't think I can go. So you've still got relationship. You see over the fence, you still got relationship, but you just say yes and no. And so a boundary helps really to define the relationship. It helps you to maintain your healing. Because if you forgive and you still stay with abuse and you don't set some boundaries and say, no, I'm not going to listen to you cuss at me anymore, I'll go in the other room. That's a boundary. You're not divorcing him, you're just saying, no, I'm not going to listen to this anymore. So that's a boundary. So if you're being hurt by someone and you work through the process of forgiving them, then you set the boundary. You say, no, what was okay before forgiveness is now not okay. I've forgiven you, but now you need to know how it hurts me and affects me, and now I'm setting some boundaries. Let your yes be yes, and your no be no, because anything more than that does come from the evil one, okay? And so you need to know what your yes is and what your no is, so that you can declare yes and no. That's what a boundary is, no. Like I'll say to people that come to retreats, if they ask, can I bring my dog in? I'll say, no, our dogs stay outside. And we can't let dogs come in the lodge because other people may have allergies. So we can't have dogs and cats in the lodge. So you can say no, and you don't have to worry that somebody's going to overreact. But you've got to learn how to say no, and say it with full conviction, because no means no. And yes means yes. And so this is so much a part of forgiveness. Because if you continue letting the abuser abuse you, even though, and you say, oh, I forgive them, and then you don't set boundaries, they can abuse you the next day and the next and the next. You have to forgive, yes, but then you must set your boundaries. Say, no, I'm not going to be, if you hit me again, if you cuss at me again, if you cheat on me again, these are the consequences. So you set the parameters, you set the boundaries through forgiveness. You've forgiven them, because if you set it outside of forgiveness, it's like you build a brick wall all the way up and you can't ever see that person again. But a fence with a gate, you can let them in. You can still see them. And as they are healing and changing, then you feel safe. And you can swing the gate this way and ask them to come in. So I hope this has helped you. Forgiveness needs boundaries. I needed boundaries with my dad once I'd forgiven him. I even needed boundaries with my mom once I had forgiven her. I needed boundaries with my husband when I forgave him. Boundaries with family relationships are just as important as boundaries with friends. And the way you do it with family is you say, Mom, you know, when you said this about something, you know, that really hurt me. And I'm just going to ask you not to say that again because I've forgiven you, but it did hurt me. Just tell them how it made you feel. That's one way you set a boundary with family. Okay? You don't say, I'm cutting you off and I'm never coming to see you. No, you set a boundary by telling them how it affected you and that from now on that you would ask them not to do that. So learning boundaries is so important to forgiveness. It works together. You know, I know that forgiveness is very complex. So I want to offer you an email that you can email questions that you would like us to answer. And so I'll answer those emails on the air, and those questions I'll answer on the air. So you can send it to deniseboggs7@gmail.com. The number 7. Denise Boggs, number 7@gmail.com. And we'll see you guys next time, and hopefully I'll be able to answer some of those real difficult questions.